Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Permanent Record by Mary H K Choi. This is a YA contemporary that features a protagonist on the older end of the spectrum. I believe he's just turned 20. And that protagonist is Pablo, and he is a biracial Korean and Indian American teen 20-something living in New York. He is a NYU dropout, and he's just kind of trying to get his life together and figure out what he wants to do because he doesn't really feel like he has any guidance any which way in what he wants to do. And one day a superstar, basically like Britney Spears at her peak almost, but even more so than that, comes into the bodega where he works, and they hit it off and everything kind of goes from there. So first off, this is a single POV story. So our protagonist is Pablo. Now from the back and the synopsis, it looks like you're going to get both perspectives, so that you're also going to follow Leanna, who is the celebrity kind of character that comes into his life. But you don't, you just get Pablo, which is something that I wasn't expecting based on the synopsis and even the cover. Also, this is more of a slice of life contemporary than what I would call a contemporary romance. There is romance in here, but for me, I felt like it was more slice of life for Pablo's life, more of a heavy-hitting contemporary than I was expecting when you have a cover like this and a synopsis that revolves around the romance. But let's get into it. As far as world building, you do get a few different settings and a few different cities, and what I liked about that is you did kind of feel the character of those different cities and places when you're there, which felt like you were sort of a fly on the wall watching Pablo's life in the different settings that he was in. But the main focus, let's talk about our characters. So, like I said, we have our main character of Pablo, who is a dropout, and he felt so real to me and so gritty, but at the same time is a character that I'm just like, I kind of want to shake you. So Pablo is very anxious in a lot of ways, but he's also depressed through most of the book, and he's really struggling with his depression. He doesn't know it's depression, he kind of figures out later, but this does kind of show that if someone is really deep in their mental illness, that they can be very toxic to people around them and to themselves and not be a good friend. And so to read about that can be difficult depending on the headspace that you're in. Now, I've talked about lately that I've been in a really bad panic flare, so I've been reaching for a contemporary, which is why I picked this up. But I kind of didn't want to read about somebody going through like a deep mental health struggle right now. So again, I felt like I didn't know going in that that's what I was going to get, and I just was like, I kind of don't want to be reading about this right now. I also am like a little annoyed because he wasn't handling things the same way that I would, which obviously isn't fair. You read about people with different perspectives, like whatever, but at the same time I was like, you're being so awful and I don't really want to read about you right now. So that kind of tainted the experience for me. I did enjoy like the first like third or half. I mean, I enjoyed most of this book. I mean, we're gonna get into how like I generally liked it, but it was very hard to kind of root for him because he was doing so many things that made sense for what he was going through, but also I'm like, ugh, like, and that's real. That happens when you're depressed also, that you're like, why am I doing these things? So it was a real experience, but it wasn't necessarily an enjoyable experience to read. He makes a lot of really rash decisions, especially around Leanna and things that I'm like, oh, and I think also it's like, it's that coming of age type of story, which I do tend to enjoy, but it's just like coming of age when I feel like for a lot of people, your early 20s is like a very exciting time. You learn a lot, but also like you are still a garbage human. And I say that as myself too. Like when you're a young 20-something, like you're like really lumpy clay. And it's really hard to work with and watch and be like, I don't know how this is gonna turn out. It could go a lot of different ways. So it's hard to just watch him like make all of these really rash, bad decisions and do all these things and push everyone away and everything. But if you're looking for a story like that and that real type of story about mental illness and things, definitely you would like this. The second part of this is, as far as characters, I really expected this, like I said before, to be a dual perspective. So Leanna as a character almost felt like a manic pixie dream girl. Google it if you don't know that reference. And that's a character that I just tend to hate, but she as a character you could tell was like fighting that image that men might have of her, that people might have of her, but at the same time I feel like we would have gotten so much more of that if we would have had her as a second perspective. I really wanted to see what she was going through, be in her mind, see how she was feeling about the relationship, see how, like, all the things that she was going through I think were really interesting, but you only see it through Pablo's eyes, and then he also just like puts her on this pedestal, obviously as this like celebrity and things like that, but like I really would have liked, I think, this book so much more if we would have also gotten her perspective on what she's going through and not what she's going through Pablo's perspective. Lastly, I'll talk a little bit about the plot. So this book, like I said, is more of a slice of life contemporary. You're more looking at like Pablo's daily life, the decisions he's making, some of the things that's happening with his friends or with his family or whatever the case may be, a lot of stuff with work and school and things, and not so much the romance. That's fine, but I do feel like this kind of looks like it's gonna be a romance, you know? So the romance, I think, is a good part of it, maybe a third or a fourth of it, even. I definitely expected like half or more with this kind of synopsis and things. So I kind of expected this to be more of an escapism type, like, you know, normal person meets this celebrity and it's a whirlwind, and yes, there's stuff in the background happening. More like the composition of a Morgan Matson book, where there's like a lot of, like, half the love stuff, half the heavy hitting stuff. Like, that's what I was expecting, and this was much more of him dealing with his shit and less of the romance stuff. So I didn't really care a lot about the romance. Like, I didn't feel butterflies for it. That's kind of my gauge for if I care. I didn't feel butterflies for it. And I was kind of left, especially because we didn't get her perspective, kind of being like, why is she into him? Like, not that she should be into a celebrity necessarily, but like, I didn't quite get the chemistry either. So you didn't necessarily follow a lot of that, you just follow a lot of like daily life stuff. So if you enjoy slice of life, you enjoy like the New York City kind of setting, that kind of stuff, and dealing with things like depression and like coming of age stories in your early 20s, you would probably enjoy this. I enjoyed it, but it tended to drag a little because it's a pretty large book. So when I wasn't getting kind of the things that I thought I was going to get, it made it drag a little bit more for me, and I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. So comment down below, let me know what you thought of Permanent Record. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.